welcome to Rapid Reviews Radio Podcast, episode 218, however you want to pronounce that. It all means the same. I am your co-host, Kiley Wilde, and I'm joined by my ever-present co-host, Pete Beckett.
Hello.
And two incredibly special guests, Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Vian. Hello.
Woo! And Tom.
Hello, good to meet you.
It's very good to meet both of you. And they are from SFB Games, which you will recognize when I say that they are the developers of Crow Country, which we have talked about on the show a few times. Because we also did it on our WASD special. So, hello, Digger.
Yes,
That's very good. I like that.
We in fact did talk about it on our WASD special.
We did. So yes, what I like to usually what I like to do. Usually what I like to do is I like to ask our guests, our wonderful, fabulous guests, how's their week been, what they've been playing, any little game news they wanna relish for a second. So Adam, I'll start with you. How's your week been, and what have you been playing?
My week's been good. I've been working on games as usual. I'm always working on games, and I've been playing the new Mario Party on Switch. I like a bit of Mario Party. I've been playing Astrobot on PS5. I've almost finished that. And most of my time has gone to an obscure JRPG on the PS1 called Wild Arms 2. Which
Nice.
I'm working my way through all the old JRPGs that I didn't play when I was a kid.
That's awesome.
There's so many of them, and they take months to finish. Wild Arms 2 is maybe not the best one, but I'm enjoying it, so I'm stuck into that. So I've been really busy with that. I'm the only person on planet Earth that's thinking about Wild Arms 2 right now. But, someone's got to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's me.
Oh, that's great. So same question to you, Tom. How's your week been, and what have you been playing?
Oh, where we lost Tom's audio?
I think you might be muted, or we've lost you.
Oh.
As soon as he needs to talk.
It's always the way.
Has it come back?
We can.
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. I don't know. The cable was fiddly. My week's been good, thank you. I've been working on was hopefully going to be the last few bits of this round of updates on Crow Country, just fixing some tiny bugs from the last patch, which just came out, because we just launched the Switch version.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago now, and did a big round of updates everywhere to add 5 new languages and, sort of optimizations and all sorts of things. There's always going to be things we didn't catch, and so just finishing those off. Hopefully early next week I'll be done there and can move on to other greater things. I've been playing the old and the new this week. I've been continuing my playthrough, 10th playthrough, 11th playthrough of Final Fantasy VII. One of Adam and my favorites when we were kids, but I'm playing it on the Switch with the 3 times speed, which is just delightful because you can just cut out all of the just the grinding and just get to the good stuff, which I mostly remember, but I'm delighted when I don't remember parts.
Yeah.
But I've also been playing Pokemon TCG Pocket. I've been enjoying the previous iteration of the mobile app for a long time now, Pokemon TCG Live, and before that Pokemon TCG, the other one, it looked like it had been going since the 90s, because I think it had.
Yeah, they had a game.
But this
Game
new
Boy
one's
version.
this new one's really moreish. It's been designed as a mobile game for sure.
Sure.
It's there to tempt me to spend money, which I have not yet. But it's a lot of fun, and yeah, that's been my week.
Excellent. Sounds like a fun one.
Yeah.
Pete, what about you? How has your week been? And what have you been playing?
Week's been very busy, work related and all that as such. So not a lot of time to play many games this week, unfortunately. But I have been playing Pokemon TCG as well. So after last week's discussion with Mike, I did pick it up and I've been playing it a little bit. And yeah, it's quite, as Tom said, it's quite moreish. It's quite easy to just delve in and just do a couple of little things here and there, just put it down and then pick it back up later on in the day when you've got a booster pack to open again. And thankfully I haven't spent any money on it yet, but that free 2-week pass is calling my name at the moment, which is quite worrying. So, but other than that, one of the big games I've been playing this week is obviously Crow Country, but we'll talk about that later on in a lot more detail. I'm still trying to continue on with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and I'm losing myself in that game like more and more. And it's a wonderful game. I'd recommend it to anyone, especially anyone who loves a good JRPG.
I love what Pylord has says, which is, do we have an Alco Kiley wine count? I've only done one glass. I'm on glass 2. Pete, can we get one on screen? I think we do need to do that.
Here's a little bit for in the background that you don't need to know. I don't control any of the stream stuff. That's totally Kiley. So
I have unlimited power.
I reckon do it for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, ask me.
Kiley, how's your week been and what have you been playing? Sorry, I was getting to it, all right?
Well, as far as the week's been, holy crap, we had what's called testing week over at the gym, and I have done the hardest workouts I've probably ever done in my life, but I completed every single one of them. Yes, it was
Well done.
tough, like super tough stuff. But I am still following my dream of being a superhero out of a comic book, so I will do all of the tests, all of them. But outside of that, I have played over on my channel, twitch.tv/KILEY_WILDE, if anybody wants to follow me over there. But I have played over there. On Mondays, we have Mayhem Mondays, which I just kind of went on my usual backup, which is Hitman. I love Hitman. I love everything to do with Hitman. I adore it. I'm a little bit obsessed right now. Which is normal for me. Wednesdays, we have Weird Wednesdays. And holy crap. Okay. We played an indie game called Mouthwashing.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Wow. Yeah. It is a surrealist adventure.
Sure.
It's surprising, and in that it is also done in the retro feel of things as well. So we did that on Wednesday. We're probably going to continue that next Wednesday, and then on Friday we did our Frightening Friday, which was supposed to be Resident Evil 7, but I changed my mind and played Hitman instead.
I mean, it's frightening that you changed your mind. Let's call it that.
Well, yeah, Fridays are notorious for not having, a lot of people around. So I was like, why waste it? Well, we'll do Resident Evil 7 on Monday. But I just am absolutely obsessed with Hitman right now, and I don't really know why. Nothing new has happened, and I'm just like,
They're good.
Good game.
Yeah, I love it.
If it's a game you enjoy, don't let it bother you. Just enjoy it and play it.
I'm not reading that out loud, Pylord, but very funny. But yes, I do actually love Agent 47's adventures. We did complete on my channel. We completed the whole World of Assassination.
Yeah.
Run, which means we got to see the full story, beginning to end, and wow, they did a good job on story. I cannot fault them for that. It really kept us, like all of us, just on edge, and kept it going and stuff like that. It added a whole new dimension because, I mean, Hitman's been around forever.
Yep.
Like literally forever, and it's always been this kind of like, you're an assassin, you go do take care of your target. It's puzzly, it's kind of puzzle in its own way. Figure out where blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. So it was very kind of almost shallow. Because it just wasn't really, it is what it is. It says what it does on the tin. But with World of Assassination, they've brought all of them together and have this running narrative from it, and it's like it's all this like espionage and intrigue and like, the power at the the invisible powers behind the thrones and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool.
I mean, that puts it in good stead when IO eventually do end up doing that James Bond game that they announced quite a few years ago.
Oh gosh, yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm also looking forward to Indiana Jones, but that will come later. But Pollard says, does stream keep freezing? If anyone else in chat can let us know, because I will need to fiddle with that.
I'm going to go and have a quick look now whilst we do that, but we can get started on a few things first, can't we?
Yes, and actually, because we've had a little bit a run of technical difficulties today, which happens. It happens. Whenever you do live shows, it always happens. But I can't switch to my window with all my questions because it will freeze this beautiful image before you. So I'm going to pull it up on my iPad.
Okay, well, it looks fine to me from when I've just looked at it anyway, but we'll carry on. So
okay,
we'll carry on.
Danker says it's fine on his end.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with the idea that it is perfectly fine. But yes, so as I said, we have special guests Adam and Tom from SFB Games. Pete, do you want to give a little background, or you want me to launch into questions? How do you want to do this?
Well, I can launch into my first question.
Go for it.
Which I guess is SFB Games. I think I know the answer to this, but to anyone who doesn't know, what does the SFB stand for, and how did this all come about?
That's a good question, Pete.
Well, many years ago, there was Flash games on the internet, which don't really exist anymore. But that's how Adam and I got started making games at all. As teenagers in our bedroom with a laptop borrowed over the summer holidays and a 30-day trial of Flash that lasted a lot longer than 30 days.
Yes.
As is tradition.
And we started wanting to upload what we were doing onto Newgrounds.com, which is where we'd seen other people making Flash games, Flash cartoons, and we needed a username because you have to have one of those. And we were brothers making Flash. We were really enjoying Super Smash Brothers, so we called ourselves the Super Flash Bros.
I love that.
And just sort of hung on to it for a long time. And then when we came to make a real company, because it was just Adam and I making stuff for free, just as teenagers for the longest time. When we came in 2012 to be a real company, we wanted to keep that a little bit, but we also didn't want to be horrifically sued into the ground by either Nintendo or HAL or any of the people we could have been targets.
Adobe.
So we just abbreviated it to SFB.
Makes sense, yeah.
We didn't have time to think of a new brand. We just couldn't be bothered.
No, honestly.
So we just kind of didn't do it.
It was Sony wanted us to suddenly be a real company because we were working on something with them for their new PlayStation mobile platform, which was about to come out. They were about to announce it at E3, and they wanted a logo from us, but that meant we had to have a company name because you have to have a company name to have a logo. So they wanted a logo they could put up on their big screen of partners on the stage, which was super exciting. We couldn't miss that, so we had to go. Okay, how do we form a company, and what do we do? How to make a logo? And this was all within like 3 days. So
the meeting that we had to decide on SFB Games was a 7-second phone call from Tom. Should we be SFB Games? Yep.
Right.
That's good.
And then it's knock a logo up, and I'll go on company's house.
Yeah, honestly,
basically. That's brilliant. But I have to ask. Okay, just for my own nerdy self. So when you were doing stuff over on Newgrounds, were you doing it in ActionScript, or were you just?
The programming side when we were making games, definitely.
I firmly believe that Tom at one point was probably the best ActionScript coder on the planet. He was pushing the boundaries of ActionScript in a way that was astonishing. Like it was amazing back then.
Oh, it was. No, it absolutely was. And that's kind of what is so strange. It's strange because I was an ActionScript 3 developer, and then all of a sudden, it didn't exist anymore. It was like,
You're just like, I've built up years of this skill, and
it means nothing.
Other technologies just sort of slowly migrate. You'd have ActionScript 4, and then they might rename it, and it gets put somewhere else. But no, this was just end of the line.
Just done. Just literally
gone.
woke up the next day, and they were like, No, we're done. No more. We don't need ActionScript 3 anymore.
I didn't have the same tragedy because I still use Flash every day for graphics and animations.
Right. Like any of the signs you see in Crow Country where it says something or has a little logo or graphic,
Yep.
all made in Flash.
Yeah, it's my go-to program. I don't use Photoshop very much. I don't use Illustrator. I use Flash, and it's great.
Amazing.
Yeah, because I know how to use it.
Flash.
Yeah, gonna say if you have that skill, you might as well keep utilising it.
I know
as long as
everything
you
about
can.
how to use Flash. I mean, I haven't updated to a new version in a long time. I'm still using like an old one.
CS 5.5.
PS5, yeah. But I just kind of
won
refuse
it
to
in the
give it
game
up.
jam, so why not keep it forever?
Yeah,
That's
works.
amazing. I love it. That's for all of our fellow nerdy coders out there. They'll know all of that.
And to all those that are younger
awesome.
than 30 years old, they're going to be like, what is Flash? What are these Flash games? We're old, we remember.
Flash.
Mm.
Does that mean you unzip
All
your
right,
shirt?
Grandpa, back to the home.
That's it right there.
No, Newgrounds was my teenage years. That was so many times
my
spent on
God.
Newgrounds
Same.
over the years. Damn.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it was Newgrounds, and then when YouTube came out, all I did was like Newgrounds, MSN Messenger, and YouTube. That was my day.
Yep.
Just going
Yeah.
those three things. Yep.
Newgrounds was one of the very few things in school that wasn't actually blocked. So it was like, oh, sweet.
Oh, really?
Most of my
Yeah.
games could be played at lunchtime.
Oh my
dear.
gosh, that is amazing. No, they definitely blocked it.
So
I think it was blocked. I think it was blocked at our school, but we found a loophole where if you wrote the URL in Microsoft Excel, it would let you through.
yes.
You know, I don't know why that worked, but it did.
I don't either, but yes, I know exactly.
it's almost like the hyperlink just wasn't actually like blocked for some strange reason due to coding. I don't know. It's just very weird.
Bunch of kids bored in a computer room, they will work out how to get around your security.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, such as playing
Absolutely.
Pokemon Yellow, Red, and Blue on an emulator via a 3.5 floppy disk.
Oh my
that's another one.
gosh. Wow.
Yeah, it worked. So, how many games
Yeah.
roughly did you develop using Flash, and how many did you post on Newgrounds?
Oh my gosh.
Thousands.
We've probably made about 50 games, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, most of them we actually published as well. I think there's very few that got left on the cutting room floor.
There's a few,
quite-
but yeah.
Yeah, only
There's
maybe
definitely some we never
5 that
finished.
didn't come out. Yeah.
I made a few experiments. I also made games without Tom. I made them with other programmers from Armor Games, which is a company we
Oh
worked
yes. Yes.
with and
I
for.
remember that.
And there was a handful of other programmers there. So there was a period of time where I would make stuff with Tom and other people as well. And some of those, a couple of those didn't get finished, but yeah, we have never sat and counted them, but
Adam is directly responsible. Directly is a strong word. Is partially responsible for Angry Birds.
no, I'm not.
no.
I have nothing to do with Angry Birds.
Well, no. So Adam was the principal level designer on a game
Oh,
called
wow.
Crush the Castle, which is a Flash game by Armor Games.
Uh-huh.
And Adam's level designs were so good that game took off, got noticed, got pretty
Oh.
much
My goodness.
one-to-one
That's
cloned
great,
by
isn't it?
Rovio and
Oh,
released as a
goodness.
mobile app.
I tell the story
Um,
as it just existed at the similar time and they stole our thunder. I don't like to say that they copied us because I don't know if that's true.
Came quite a few months afterwards.
Well, all right. Anyway, yeah.
It felt like a
yeah.
fast follow.
It's
But-
more like I was
I mean-
it's more like I was the drummer that left the Beatles before they got famous. You know, I was the game that wasn't
That would be
You-
the best.
Angry Birds. Right. Yeah.
So you were the direct inspiration, let's say.
I don't know. We just made a game that was the exact same genre, and then the next one happened to be Angry Birds. And anyway, I did a lot of level design for Armor Games because I was happy to
I
do it.
played
and-
lots of Armor games.
I'm sure I played a ton
Yeah.
of them as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely, because they were ubiquitous, as they say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So not only did you create games, but was it true that you were also developing Flash movies as well at the time?
Oh,
Yeah, so that's
wow.
that's why we got into it. We did movies first because we were inspired by Legendary Frog, aka Joseph Blanchett,
What a legend.
who was kind of the go-to like video game parody Flash animator.
Yes. Yes.
And he was famous when we arrived, and we watched his Final Fantasy parodies and Resident Evil parodies.
Yep.
And we were like, we want to make this, so we started making our own. Our first one was a very weak Metal Gear Solid parody, and then we made a Smash Brothers one.
I animated, right? I think
Yeah, because I didn't know how to animate it. I drew the pictures, and then I was
neither
like,
did I, so that worked out.
yeah. But we ended up making friends with Legendary Frog, and we worked with him on multiple projects. And he's
I know.
yeah.
What projects did you work with him on?
So I animated his All About Random Battles FF7 video,
I
which is
watched
black
that
and white
so
one.
many times.
Yeah, I did. I drew all the backgrounds, and Tom programmed the Materia Madness preloaded minigame for that.
Oh my
You have to
goodness.
catch the materia. So that was the whole thing. I did the backgrounds for his Legendary Frogs Code Veronica parody, which is a Resident Evil parody. And that's the first time I bumped into Eager Raptor, who was doing voice acting. So we were friends with Eager Raptor way back in the day. It was a fun thing.
That's amazing.
And then he went on to become very well known, obviously.
Oh yeah, most people know who Eager
We
Raptor
gave him
is.
some of his first voice work.
I was gonna say, to be fair, Pete doesn't know this, but the whole reason I wanted to start a podcast is because I kind of wanted that Game Grumps kind of experience, you know,
Wow, yeah, sure.
someone you can play with, you know. So big influence on my choice of direction I took.
And
Wait,
funnily
who's
enough,
and who's not so great?
I don't know. I've never been able to work that one out, but there was
switches back and forth.
Well, there was a picture that used to float around with myself where I used to have longer hair and I actually did kind of look like Eager Raptor, so...
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Good old Aaron.
Well, he's a very nice guy in real life.
Oh, I'm sure he comes across as very, like, authentic and nice.
Yeah,
and
he's always been really nice to us.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That's such a good time. Like, it's silly because nostalgia, a lot of people are kind of like, oh, you shouldn't rely on nostalgia or, you know, for various things. But sitting here talking about Newgrounds and Flash developing and even Ego Raptor or whatever, it is very nice to have that kind of base, you know, to that shared base and then to grow from there. Which of course is goes into our next part, which is what happened after you formed SFB Games. What was the first big, like, you were like, we're a company now.
Well, so we were already working on Detective Grimoire, right, Adam?
Okay.
I think we started that in about 2010, so 2 years before we became a real company. Adam and I were working with Armor Games, funnily enough, and we had released a game a couple of years before called Detective Grimoire that was a Flash game that did quite well. I mean, we never really saw like the final numbers on these things, but the head of Armor Games was like, this is a wild hit, like we want another one. And Flash had just about gotten the ability to publish to mobile, like an actual mobile app.
Nice.
Like the very first iteration of that. And so he came along to us and said, do you want to do another one, but this time on mobile? Like the App Store was just kicking off, there was a games boom happening, and it felt like the right kind of time, and it was the right kind of game where it wasn't action-y, so you're not sort of trying to push the Flash because it was bad at mobile, let's face it. No, so we were already doing that. We'd had a Kickstarter for that, and then we were trucking along with that, and then we met Sony by winning this game jam, and started talking to them about doing something else, which was also ended up being a sequel to another Flash game we made called Haunt the House, which is a game where you play as a little ghost. And we ended up making that for PlayStation Mobile, which was on the Vita, but it was like a special subsection of the Vita, but it also ran on Sony Xperia phones, including that great one that had the little pop-out gamepad.
Yeah, I remember it. One of my friends had it, and it was...
I had it because I had to have it to test it.
Right.
Of course, yeah.
I had to make sure our game actually ran on this thing, but it was their attempt at trying to be very sort of, okay, you need an off-the-shelf Vita for £200 or whatever it was at the time, and nothing else to develop a game for PlayStation, which was sort of a revolutionary idea at the time. Because dev kits cost thousands if you don't get them for free, which only big companies back then did. So it was a really neat idea, and it took off a little bit, and then along with the Vita, just kind of didn't. But our game did nicely on there. It got us it got us through to the end of Detective Grimoire. Detective Grimoire got us through to the end of taking both those games, putting it on Steam, and then we were Steam developers, and we haven't sort of looked back since. Once we found a place that we could put games reliably and find an audience and make money from it and carry on to the next game.
It was about the App Store for the longest time. I feel like only in the last few years have we kind of realized that the iOS App Store is just not a big deal to us anymore.
It's gone away
really
again. Yeah, it was huge for us for a while.
Yeah,
the house on the App Store. We said Grimoire on the App Store. It did great. Even our smaller games did very nicely there for us, and sort of kept the lights on for a long time.
Now it's like Steam is number one, obviously.
Yeah,
in terms of importance.
It is. It is interesting that you say that because about like specifically the iOS or Apple Store, because it has been very strange because I always had like a subscription to, was it Apple Arcade or whatever?
Yep.
We were there on day one on Apple Arcade. We had a launch title on Apple Arcade.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, it was very revolutionary at the time. And I've actually talked about there was a service in the U.S. When I lived in the U.S. Called GameFly, which was,
I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Netflix of gaming. And so then, fast forward to Apple Arcade, and at the time it was very innovative, and we kind of talked about this last week, actually, I think, or 2 weeks ago. Like you could play GTA on your, let's say, iPad, but the sticks were virtual and all that kind of stuff, and it was kind of difficult to play. But I have noticed I was a heavy mobile game player, for a couple of years there, and now it's just kind of drifted, and I'm going more to Steam. Like you're saying, and I think there's a change coming, or has started. Yeah, and
there was a boom there for a while of like interesting, not necessarily optimized to rinse every penny out of you games.
Yes,
and especially at the start, there was no mechanism for taking money other than just selling you a game.
Yeah.
So all those games were sort of $5 or $10 and were just straight up. I remember playing Crash Team Racing port, just a brand new game, and Monkey Ball, and just on my little iPod Touch.
Yes. Monkey Ball played great on it too. Yeah.
And that lasted a long time, well into the period of free to play stuff. But I feel like in the last couple of years, it's slowly gone into the background, and the hyper casual folks have just sort of taken over, because it is clearly what makes the most money by a long shot. And you just kind of can't compete with that.
Yeah, our games have never been compatible with a sort of really well-oiled mobile model in terms of like retention or transactions. We are the opposite of that. We just want to charge you $10 and never talk to you again.
I mean, how novel is that? Wow.
Let's pass each other in the street. I'll hand you a game. You hand me $10, and we'll go off.
Yeah. So it's always been like, Anyway.
But it does feel like that, especially as a mobile gamer, which I would have considered myself a few years ago. Now I really just play puzzle games on mobile, because it isn't a go and buy a game and it's yours. It is free to play with microtransactions. Yeah.
Right.
And everything. But it is funny because that had such a big moment. There was a couple of years there, and then now, like I said, maybe it's the release of the Steam Deck or something. But Steam is just it, for a lot of people. But I want to ask, like, how different is it to develop for, let's say, the Switch and the Steam Deck, and all these different platforms? Is it vastly different? Is it you have to start from ground zero and build it all back up, or how does that go?
So when we made the switch away from Flash eventually, so those early games I was talking about, Detective Grimoire, Haunt the House, even the Steam versions and the mobile versions were all made in Flash. But eventually we did have to move on, and it was Snipperclips that we worked on in 2017 with Nintendo, and that was our first console game ever, a proper console game.
Right.
And Nintendo said, took a look at our skills and said, you should go learn Unity because that's going to be the right one for you.
Yes.
Because even the prototype for that game was in Flash, but we obviously couldn't take that to the Switch.
Right.
So we went and learned Unity over the course of the development of the game. And that is now our main platform. And so Unity is, if nothing else, very good at being multi-platform. And
That's true.
as we've done this a couple of times now, I built up a set of tools that let me just mostly hit a button, out comes a Steam build. Hit another button, out comes a PlayStation build.
Yes.
There's things to hook up there that take a little bit of time, and the Switch version especially took a good few months this year to get working, but not because it didn't run first time. We could hit the button and out came a Switch build, but it ran slowly because the Switch is older hardware.
Of course,
Yes.
yeah.
It was older out of the box, out of the gate in 2017 on purpose to make sure it was affordable, which is a great choice because look how well that's done.
I was gonna say they did weirdly make a very good marketing move, but
They did, yeah.
I mean, Iwata was all over that. So, yeah, other than having to cram it onto less powerful hardware, it ultimately just works out of the box. So, I have one project that has Crow Country, and that can just spit out these different builds, which is a lovely way to work because I know it used to be that you would have to build Crow Country for, say N64, Crow Country 4 PS1, Crow Country 4 PC, and they would have to be completely different engines, different everything from the ground up. You might be able to reuse art assets, maybe.
yeah.
Sure.
But we fortunately have never come across that era. Like by the time we were making cross-platform things, Unity was already established enough to survive. So
That's excellent.
I have a question because you brought the game up now, and I remember buying the game on day one of launch when the Switch came out. How did it actually come about that you had a partnership with Nintendo to release a game on the first day?
Oh no!
Oh, Adam, you're...
It's been one of those nights.
Yes. Everybody has had a technical issue.
Kylie, it's your turn next.
I know exactly. It's gonna happen.
Let's hope not.
I'm going to plug my computer in because it is actually about to die.
Oh goodness. Oh.
Oh no.
Adam, we've lost your sound.
This is the joys of a live recording.
What's crazy though is this has been so amazing so far. This has been absolutely, like, I've loved every bit of the information and everything because I'm totally into developer lore.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go, Adam. We can hear you.
Yeah, I just
we could for a second.
my microphone and now it's...
It almost sounds like a webcam microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have switched to a different one.
How funny, how weird. That's just been how tonight is, but that just proves it's going to be the best episode ever.
Yeah, why not?
And that's what we should call it. Best episode ever.
This is just Discord.
So
for you.
while Adam figures that out,
Yes.
yeah, we lucked out big time. We could have gone for a bathroom break and it would have never happened.
Sure.
We were showing Haunt the House at Eurogamer Expo's
Oh, yes.
Left Field collection, and very kindly given to us for free by David. And we, Adam and I were both there, but I think Adam was manning the booth at the time. Not that you had to be there the whole time, but Adam was there. I was off wandering the show floor.
Yes.
And a guy comes up to him and sort of shows interest in the game, and they start chatting. And I think at some point he says, "Well, have you tried pitching this to any of the console people, any of the platform holders?"
Yeah.
There we go. We
There
can
we
see you
go.
now, Adam.
I literally didn't touch anything and it broke, so I'm
That's
just going to
fine.
say that for the record. Sorry, Tom. Please continue.
That's just one of
No,
those
it's okay.
nights.
And so Adam says, "Oh no, we know people at PlayStation, and we did this on PlayStation originally." And he said, "Oh, what about Nintendo?" And Adam said, "Oh, we don't know anyone at Nintendo." And this guy, Tim, pulls a business card out of his pocket and goes, "Well, now you do," in the smoothest
Aw.
move
Amazing.
I
ever.
love that.
And then disappeared into the night. But we chatted to them briefly at the start there about maybe bringing on the house to Wii U, because that was when
Yeah,
that was.
we
15?
sort of like
Wow.
pitched a couple of stuff for Wii U, like just
Yeah.
to try it out. Obviously none of that happened, but we went through the process at least a bit, just to keep the relationship going, if nothing else. And then years later, Tom and I were we decided to make a game, like a game jam game, just in one day, just to like try stuff out.
Yeah.
And we came up with a game called Friendshapes, and we were like, "Oh, this is really good. This is a co-op game, a co-op family-friendly puzzle game." So, like, and we loved it so much. We were like, "Oh, this is something. This is something good." So we sent the demo to a few companies, right, Tom? Like a handful of indie publishers, and Nintendo. And all the indie publishers said, "No, this is annoying. We don't like this." And Nintendo said, "Yeah, we want to make this with you."
Nice.
But like even from that moment when they were like, "We're very interested in this," there was many hoops to jump through of like going through checks and having them come visit and doing test versions and getting it approved in various stages of green light. So it wasn't just like immediate.
And now we're making snippet clips, right?
Yeah, it was. There were many stages we had to sort of get through, but they just wanted the game. We were basically right place, right time, because obviously we didn't know about the Switch for some time because they kept it secret.
Of course.
We all pretended we were making a Wii U game at first, but they obviously were thinking internally, "Oh, we want a family-friendly, out-of-the-box co-op for this new console."
Yeah.
Which is what it ended up being. So thankfully we presented one to them at the right moment in time.
Look, it was a game that made complete sense with the fact that you had the two Joy-Cons and it was a co-op game, because I remember like when I got my Switch, it was one of the games that appealed to me. I looked at it and was like, this is a really cool idea, a puzzle platforming sort of game just to play with your friends. You just snap a Joy-Con off and just give it to your friend. And actually it was how I got more familiar with my now brother-in-law, because we both played it like on launch day together, which is awesome.
It's a very good like relationship game. Like it's a good game to play, and you sort of end up laughing together and getting annoyed with each other, and like it's just a nice thing.
Yeah. So when was it decided, and how early on into development, that it was going to be a launch game for the Switch?
I mean, they just didn't tell us anything for a while. We had suspicions for various reasons. The earliest clue I noticed was that I asked about control layout, and they said only use 2 shoulder buttons.
Okay.
On each side.
Yeah, like an L and an R. And I sort of thought at the time, that's interesting, because obviously the Wii U had 4.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is unusual. And then, it turned out that they just announced it later to us. And we had to fly to America to be, privately disclosed of what the console was. And
that's cool.
very exciting. And this was all still, obviously, when it was all super secret. And and they were like, it's going to be a launch title. And Tom and I, in our very kind of English reserve, way, were like, oh, cool.
But internally, you're literally going, oh my god.
Yeah, well, the biggest issue with being a launch title is you can't delay the game at all ever.
Yeah.
And
There's no
every other
question.
game in history gets delayed, right? It's just
Right,
what happens.
yes. Yeah.
But we were on a schedule where it's like, yeah, no, you can't screw this up. You cannot slow down and mess this up because
Oh,
it just
my
won't work.
gosh.
So that was fun. But we made it. Came out.
How many technical issues did you have in the lead up to launch, though?
Fewer than I would have expected, considering we didn't have any Unity experience, and Unity was being
Right.
built for Switch around us. Literally, it was us, and we found out later Bomberman R, which was another launch
Yes.
title on Switch, both
Yeah.
made in Unity, and we had a direct line of communication with Unity Japan, who were building the Unity player for Switch, and so we'd find an issue, and we were like, "Hold on, is this us or them?"
Right.
And some of the time it would be them, but most of the time it would be us doing something silly. But we luckily, it wasn't just Adam and me. Ultimately, we had a couple of really great programmers, Danny, Daniel, Terry. They all sort of came on board. Danny came on board right at the start of the project. Initially to teach Adam and me Unity,
Danny
as a
Gallagher,
Unity
we
expert.
hired him. Like, he was a Unity expert that came in, and his first job was to teach us how to use Unity,
Oh,
which
that's
he did,
great.
because now we know. So thank you so much, Danny.
Right, very patient, and then was then the lead programmer for the rest of the project, and took us all the way through to the end. And we had a couple of extra folks come in at the end, nearer the end, to help us get across the finishing line. So I think what we had 7 people in the office, including us,
wow.
at maximum at some point.
At its
including-
absolute peak, including someone from Nintendo
Yeah.
doing UI
Right.
UI artwork.
Oh,
That was the
wow.
busiest. That's the most people we've ever had in a one room development for us. And normally it's 2 or 3, maybe 4. Going into the office during Snipperclips and seeing 6 people at their desks working was very surreal. So when I see credits for games where there's 100 people,
Yes.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, what is this? This is very strange. 7 is too many. Anyway, we're a very small company. That's the bottom line.
Of course.
Oh my goodness. But do you think because you're a small company, do you think that is actually makes it where you can almost, because kind of like we were saying, everyone has delays. That's kind of just the way of games right now. But having such a smaller development team, does that maybe make it a little bit more attainable, timelines and stuff? Is it?
Yeah,
Well,
I
a
think.
lot of the time. Oh, sorry, God, Tom, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say that Adam and I know if it's just Adam and I on a project, or even if it's just a few extra people,
Right.
Adam and I know the way we work so well that making a time estimate for something is usually fairly accurate.
Right.
And we can be quite agile with sort of dropping things or adding things, and because we are ultimately the people who decide that thing whilst we're making it. If it is just us and a handful of other people, then it can be a really nice way to work where we're just
Well,
getting on
normally
with it.
there's nobody giving us a release date to hit or telling us that we need to
Right.
finish the game. Normally, it's just us, and we work until we think we can announce something or not. And so it's very kind of like just normal, casual, relaxed, like just make the game and then release it. Nobody's paying us usually.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes there's funding, sometimes there's distribution, whatever, but it's just kind of quite laid back. And Tom and I both work really fast, and we both know each other's work really well. So
Right.
I've always felt like a smaller dev team is better because it's faster than a big dev team.
Yes.
Like,
see,
you're
I
more
would
efficient.
agree
You don't
with
have to
that.
have very many meetings. You just know what's going on. I just like it. But I've never worked in a big old team, so I don't really know what that would be like, to be honest.
Well, too many cooks in the kitchen is the saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and ask Danker's question, Pete, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
A question that's slightly on topic. How do you, as a developer, feel about the recent change to how the shortlist for the Game Awards mean that the same game could come up multiple years to the point where you could be missed off the list?
Wait,
Oh,
so
sure.
is it that the same game can't come up multiple years or can come up multiple
It's
years?
now. I think
Now,
it's
because
been
you can
changed.
have
DLC
re-releases,
Yes.
DLC, remasters, as long as they decide it is sufficiently like
Yeah.
different.
standalone in its artistic endeavor.
Yeah.
You know, if it's literally just like, oh, it's the Xbox port of this other game that came out a year ago, they wouldn't include that.
Yeah,
But
so
Right.
something
Yeah, I
like
mean,
Shadow
it's-
of the Erd Tree coming out for Elden Ring is now considered.
it feels
the
like
Game
it's
of
the
Year
Shadow of the
again.
Erd Tree rule.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
That is a
I'm
new
pretty sure
game,
that's
though.
what it's
That is a
for.
that's a new video game.
See,
tacked onto
that's the
end of
thing.
it.
Like that. But I'm gonna just say this, and then I'll totally back off and let our wonderful guest say it. But I mean that does happen. I mean, think about Red Dead. Redemption, the zombies. That's like a whole separate standalone game, and
Yeah.
people didn't get kind of mentioned or whatever because it's kind of considered a weird DLC in almost a way, even though it is a separate
Yeah, no.
standalone game.
It's just
that
a
kind of
different
thing.
way to package up and
Mhm.
sell a game and distribute
Yeah.
a game.
Yeah.
And if it's honestly for that kind of game and that size of game, it's a really smart thing to do, because if your audience is pretty much a one-to-one circle of people who enjoyed Elden Ring, or people who
Right.
enjoyed Red Dead, then why not serve it to them in the game they're probably already still playing, or at least probably still have installed kicking around. You might as well.
Gotcha.
Less to install,
It's the
less
Fortnite
to...
model.
And I think it's honestly probably a lower psychological barrier. If you've... Like, buying one big nice piece of DLC to me feels less like of a hurdle than buying a separate standalone thing that, even if it's the same price, the same content, whatever, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels so. I don't begrudge it at all, to be honest, as long as it is that and not sort of re-releases, which the rules seem to make sure that it is very much its own thing. I'm completely fine with that. And to be honest, the Game Awards is usually about those larger titles
It is.
anyway.
Well, I'll say this:
there's-
you might have to wait until tomorrow and then come back and ask me for my opinion on Game Awards nominations, because currently I'm pending that.
Sure.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah,
that's
we understand Crow Country for Game of the Year, maybe.
There you go.
Yeah, come on, Jeff, do the right thing.
Oh, we love Jeff here. We don't. I love Jeff. Pete does not.
Balance.
No comment.
But yes, there you go. But I would just kind of throw my opinion out there, but we'll move on. But I'm not 100% on board with AAA game awards and indie game awards being smushed together.
Yeah.
I kind of almost feel like they are separate entities because there's such a giant cavern.
I disagree.
Whatever.
I think there's
Right,
no
okay.
gap. I think they go all the way up
Oh,
the
okay.
scale, and there are games that are in between the two. You know what I
There-
mean?
There are, I mean, like for the longest time, Destiny, Bungie was considered an indie. I mean, they're now owned by Sony, obviously, but
Baldur's
Oh,
Gate
wow.
3 is considered indie, and that's
Yes,
like
it
the biggest,
is,
most
it is.
successful thing of all time.
yes, it is. It is. I actually really like that game.
No, I remember going to several events and it being in the early access, like, for years.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah,
Seen it
absolutely.
at EGX for like 3 years in a trot.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
But
Yeah, I
actually,
do.
you know what? That brings up my other question. Pete, you just kicked it off in my brain. So how much, like, does showcasing your games at, let's say, conventions, WSD and what have you, EGX, all of those, how much does that really benefit you as the developer? Is it a good place for bug catches? Is it a good place for like kind of like testing people's, feels about it and stuff like that?
Yeah. So we've had a good / bad experience with showing a game after launch at a convention that we definitely should have shown it before launch. Right. We took Tangle Tower in 2019, a couple months after launch, to what's it called, Adam?
Adventure X at the British Library.
Adventure X, there we go, in the British Library, which is a lovely event.
Nice.
Right.
I'm sad it's not at the British Library anymore, but it is still going. They just had a digital version of it actually last week.
Yeah, we were in
it. We were in it. We were.
Did a panel.
So we took Tangle Tower and we showed it to people in person for the very first time because it was an Apple Arcade launch title. We'd been keeping it secretive up until the Apple Arcade announcement, which was 2 days before the Apple Arcade launch. So we just hadn't wanted to sort of poke the beast and take it out publicly without Apple say so. And so we put it down in front of people, and about half of them could not get off the first screen.
Oh, no.
Because there's a character. It's a point-and-click adventure, kind of. And this is a room full of people who love point-and-click adventures. It is called Adventure X. It's a adventure game lovers conference. So there's a character on the screen, but she is not the player character. There is no player character on the screen. You are in a Phoenix Wright first-person perspective.
Yeah.
But we don't tell you that. We just sort of cold open into this thing. And so people were clicking around, trying to get her to move, doing everything except clicking her to talk to her, which then progresses the story.
Yeah, because you don't click on Guybrush when you play Monkey Island.
No, you don't. Exactly.
You click everything except Guybrush.
Right. And we solved this problem overnight by just expanding her hit area to include the thing that almost everyone did click, which was the building in the background.
Yeah.
And she just says, like the thing she says when you click her is, oh, hey, you can move by using this button, and then it unlocks the move button, and then you're off to the races.
Right.
So really dumb, and we will hopefully never release the game without showing it to someone we don't know, or at least several people we don't know.
We've showed Crow Country at a couple of events, and it is so helpful just to stand there and watch people play. And if you watch 10 people play, you might pick up something quite subtle as well. You might be like, oh, one in 3 people are being confused by this bit of text, so let's tweak it. It's so good. But as far as like, publicity goes, or, getting wish lists for Steam, which is the big thing you're trying to get. It's not like the biggest deal compared to what you could achieve with some kind of viral internet thing or TikTok or Steam or YouTube. So it's like you really have to make it about the one-to-one interactions. Like you might meet somebody from a press thing, which is great. You might meet some, whoever, and you want to make all those connections, and then just watching people play the game and being able to chat to them afterwards, and they saying, oh yeah, I liked it, but I was confused by this, or anyway, that it is really valuable, but not necessarily as a kind of immediate marketing tool.
Right, it's more like just a supplemental. Maybe?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I find that very interesting because it does seem like such a kind of like, it's almost, I don't know how to word this correctly, but almost like beta testing in a way.
Yeah, sure.
And even, I'm bringing up WASD because it's at the forefront of all of our minds right now. But that, go ahead, whatever you're going to say.
You said RIP.
I was just
RIP. Oh, sorry. But that is where a lot of us were introduced to Crow Country, which is what I want to segue into. Yes. Now, so Crow Country, I would like to know kind of how that came about, even just the idea of it. And also, was it always meant to be a kind of retro-inspired type of aesthetic?
So I was... I made a horror game. The first horror game I made was In Media Molecules Dreams.
Yes,
nice.
Yes.
And it's called Horror Kart, and you play as a little bear in like a Mario Kart go-kart, driving through a spooky graveyard solving puzzles. Anyway, I made that, and this was at the beginning of lockdown, so I had a lot of time. our official project was was like not shelved, was like temporarily on hold for other reasons. So I had like kind of official free time. So I made a horror game in Dreams, and I just really, really enjoyed the vibes of it. And at the same time, I've been collecting and playing PS1 games for a long time and working my way through everything. Like I said at the top, I've been playing JRPGs, platformers, horror games. I just love like PS1 and PS2 horror, and I replay them. Like I replayed Resident Evil 2 Classic, and I just realized, oh, this is like a perfect video game. It's got this magic quality that even the good modern horror games aren't touching. There's something about this that's so good. So I just was left with the feeling of I really want to make my own survival horror game that's not in Dreams. And I had prototyping tools in Unity. So I made Crow Country in Unity with a plugin called Playmaker, which is a visual scripting tool, which is sort of not really supposed to be used for full games. It's sort of like prototyping kind of thing. But I just got started. Like I said, it was lockdown. I had lots of free time, and I just got stuck in. And it was just a for fun hobby project where I was like, it would be fun to try this. Maybe I can make a really, really tiny survival horror game with like 6 rooms, you know, and that would be just for fun. And maybe if I get lucky, I can finish it and we can put it on itch.io for free or something.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I just didn't stop making it. I just kept going because it was really fun. And then about a year into development, I mentioned to Tom, I'm making a survival horror game, by the way. He was like, cool, yeah, sounds
Cool,
good.
yeah, let me get on with this other thing. Like,
Yeah. It just grew. It just grew into a full game. Like, I don't know how it happened. But thanks for the pandemic really helped it.
Cool.
So, did you come up with the full aesthetic of it all? Like, was the design then your design?
Quite early on, I was fiddling with shaders on the camera to get it. I knew I wanted it to be lo-fi. Because, you know, I love PS1 graphics. I don't like modern 3D graphics most of the time. I think they're less appealing and less charming and less, you know, characterful.
No, that is true.
I also don't have 3D modeling skills, so I couldn't have made a fancy looking 3D game if I'd wanted to. So it was, you know, let's make the characters blocky and simple because that's all I can do anyway. But let's lean into that and let's say, you know, PS1 vibes. And I was just messing around with shaders on the camera, and I kind of lucked into this magic formula where it looked like a PlayStation 1 game, but also in like a kind of weird dreamlike version of it where it looks a bit like a pre-rendered background and it's kind of crushed down and blurred, and there's a little bit of chromatic aberration and the colors are limited. Anyway, it's like a secret sauce that I didn't make on purpose. I made it by accident by just mixing a couple of things together. And the day I got it right, I realized, oh, this is a magical filter. And it's doing something very special where immediately the game looks cool and interesting and fun and magical. Yes. And I just decided I am never touching this again. Like, I cannot touch this now because it's the secret sauce. Tom has recreated it from scratch on his end to match exactly the version I made by accident. But it's like a secret recipe that I made by accident that's been very successful.
Well, what I want to say, some of our chat is also in my chat on my channel. And so they've seen Crow Country, you know, streamed, and you cannot fault that aesthetic. It is so on point. It takes me right back to that PS1 era. And it feels, I know that a lot of people compare it to like Resident Evil. But it has that kind of Final Fantasy VII feel too, because it's that almost cubist, I guess. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, it's like the low poly. The character models do evoke Final Fantasy VII, and the backgrounds kind of evoke the pre-rendered backgrounds from Final Fantasy VII.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though obviously in Crow Country it's all just 3D, you know, dynamic rendered. So again, I didn't really set out to do that, but I guess I really like Final Fantasy VII, so I did it by accident, and here we are.
It works. It absolutely works. So, I mean, aside for our listeners and our watchers, go. There is a demo on Steam. So go download that and then love it and then buy the game because it's amazing. But what kind of drew you to the kind of old... Okay, when I played it, it felt very much like Parasite Eve. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
So I've played Parasite Eve. Before I made Crow Country, I played Parasite Eve 2, which I really loved. So Parasite Eve 2 looks a little bit like Final Fantasy 8. For those that don't know, Parasite Eve is made by Squaresoft, and it's a horror survival. So Parasite Eve 2 looks a bit like Final Fantasy 8, and I played that and I loved it. And I hadn't played Parasite Eve 1, even though I was aware of it. It never got a PAL release. It never got a European release.
Oh, it didn't? I didn't realize that.
So we had the sequel, but nobody around here had played the original one. So I was aware of it. And I was aware that it was like, oh, it's a horror game, but it looks like Final Fantasy 7 because the first one looks like 7. And I always wanted to play it. And then since then, I have a chipped PS1 that can play anything. I bought Parasite Eve and I've played it now. And it is wonderful. I love it to pieces. But it didn't necessarily inspire Crow Country because I think I played it afterwards. So, but that, you know.
Okay.
It's common DNA for sure.
Now I'm definitely learning new things here. I did not realize that you guys did not get Parasite Eve.
There's a lot of stuff we didn't get, pal. Honestly, particularly Squaresoft games. A lot of late '90s Squaresoft we didn't get. Like it's weird. Yeah, they put out so many games. Like Brave Fencer Musashi we didn't get. Yeah.
I'm genuinely shocked at that.
Yeah.
Wow. What about Dark Cloud? Did everybody get Dark Cloud?
There is a Dark Cloud. Yeah,
there is,
maybe a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I have to say that it is very interesting. I played. Did I play with a controller? I think I played it with a controller. Crow Country.
I hope so. It's not very good on keyboard.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I played with a controller that's sitting right next to me. But it did, like, for me, it threw me right back into that time period, and it was very like there's a kind of comfort level there.
Yep.
Yeah. It's supposed to be comforting and cozy and like, you know, a nice vibe. Like I say, when I was playing Resident Evil 2 through, the main feeling I had was this is so cozy and I'm having such a nice time playing through this game. I want to make a game that's as nice as this. So yeah.
And then there's a little subtle kind of like there's a little bit of humor in there. Especially when you save at the fireplace and all kinds of stuff. So there is humor there, which I love. But I have to say, there is a character in there that really creeped me the F out, but in the best way. It is that, like, stick man, I guess is the best way to call him.
Oh, yeah.
He's like...
The spindle is his official name.
That one, yes! It's the sounds and the visuals are so... It's terrifying in the best way, but I mean that in the best way. And I was running away going, let me in the gate. I just really, really want to encourage our audience to definitely go check this out. I am not kidding. It's come up several times. Me and Pete, like I said, we did it on our WASD special. Here we are interviewing the devs. There's something to this. You need to go get it right now.
So who was it that out of the two of you, or was it another member of the team that really fleshed out a lot of the story aspects of the game?
There you go.
So to be honest, I made the entire game by myself, and I'm not being like funny when I say that.
Yeah.
Tom came on board after a while and did a million tech things for the sort of publishing wrapping up phase. He did, the save system and the back end and the data stuff, and then all the actual like terrifying tech stuff in order to get it on consoles and controller support, all that stuff. Before that, with the exception of the music, which was written by Ocarod, our amazing composer, I made the entire game, everything from scratch. I wrote everything, I designed everything, I built all the models from scratch, I programmed all the gameplay, all the sound design except for the music. Yeah, so it's me. I made it. I wrote it.
Wow. Okay.
That's impressive.
That's massively impressive. And actually, so while I was playing it, and I mentioned this to my chat, there was an element to it because it's set in a theme park.
Yeah.
Crow Country is a theme park. And it felt very similar to, there is this whole kind of subgenre, I guess, like over on Reddit and Imager and all stuff. Urbex Explorers.
Yeah. No, you're talking my language immediately.
Okay,
I know all about Urbex.
That's exactly. I was telling my chat, I was like, there's this kind of feeling of like when you go and you check out urbex type things, especially the theme parks, the abandoned theme parks, there's this eerie kind of like, this Crow Country captures that. It's this eerie kind of like, this once was vibrant and alive and now it's not, and I can't really explain it, but it does absolutely capture that, and it brings you to it, because if I remember correctly, Crow Country set in like 1980, or it opened in 1985 or 86 or something like that, the park itself.
Sure, yeah. It's from the mid-80s, and the game is set in 1990 after it was shut down.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's been abandoned. It's been, left to the elements and stuff like that.
Basically.
Derelict. There you go. That's the word for it. And it captures that exactly. And there's this weird kind of like crisis, that you have, like, oh, time keeps marching on and things break down and everything. It captures that perfectly.
So I'm really into urban exploring videos. I'm too scared to do it myself because I'm scared I'll get in trouble or something. So I just watch YouTube.
Me too.
My favorite urban exploring channel on YouTube is The Proper People, and they like many urban explorers went to the sort of holy grail, which was the Nara Dreamland in Japan. Which is a kind of like a Disneyland, but not. They didn't get the license, so it's all uncanny Disneyland, and it was so wonderful and strange. It's been demolished now because there were too many people crawling around there at night. Yeah. But I watched that video, and they go. Normally they don't go at midnight or whatever because it's too dangerous. But for this one, they had to. So they go around Nara Dreamland, and it's pitch black, and they've got flashlights, and there's old animatronics rusting in cages and stuff. And they bump into other urban exploring people, and it's really creepy and cool. And this kind of thing definitely inspired Crow Country. Like, Crow Country is an urbex simulator. If you want to, it is, yeah. But then so is Silent Hill. Like, if you play Silent Hill,
it is,
like, you go to abandoned buildings, and that's really common. So I like those games as well for that reason.
Absolutely. I think the term is liminal spaces or something like that.
Sure, yeah, you could very easily get liminal spaces.
Yeah. And there's this just weird kind of, there's a weird kind of fear there. It's a fear, but also kind of like Chernobyl. It's terrifying, but you want to see it, Yeah. Weirdly to say that, I'm telling our beautiful audience that I'm not kidding. And if you were in my chat when I streamed this, I said this is like an urbex exploring adventure. It captures that entire feel right off the bat, which is weirdly kind of terrifying in a way. It's an existential crisis type thing, which, believe it or not, I actually get from Fallout as well. When you're walking through Fallout, it's weird. So when it came to the design of the monsters, for lack of a better term, and all of that kind of thing, was that all you, or was that? Yeah.
Yeah, the monsters, like, when I started making the game, there was no story. I just had, a character and a handgun, and I knew I wanted it to be in a theme park quite early on, and then I wrote a story for that, basically, even though the story isn't actually about the theme park, it's about something else that sort of happens underneath. Yeah. But the first enemy I made was just a generic shambling guy, and I don't like normal zombies. I think they're boring, but I was aware that you need a bipedal humanoid enemy to walk slowly towards you, so I started with that. And then later on, I found ways to make them interesting. Like the enemies in Crow Country, they're called the guests, and at least the primary form, the most common one, they're quite heavily randomized. So every time you see one, it'll be malformed in some unique way, where it'll be, leaning over, and it'll have one big arm and one small arm, and it will be like permanently kind of tilted back and something. So they start off as a normal human, and then the programming goes like every time. So you'll never see the same one twice.
Oh, that's amazing.
I did notice that, actually.
Yeah, and if you see one and you leave the room and come back, it'll re-roll the randomization.
Right.
So here's a tip from me. They have less health when they're smaller. So if you see a big one, just leave the room and come back and try and get him small, because he'll take fewer bullets.
Yes.
You heard it here. Pro tip.
That was the thing that I noticed, as I was playing it myself, but then went and looked at a YouTube playthrough, and it was very different to how I was playing it as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So Sorry. Then are the rooms? I forgot the freaking term where it makes it up as it goes. Dadgummit.
Oh, you mean like
procedurally generated?
Oh yeah, I was trying to think of the word.
No, it's very handmade. It's very much a handmade game.
That is one of my pet peeves, and yes, I said that on the stream as well. That procedurally generated, I think it can work in certain games, in certain areas. But I think that there was a time there where, like We Happy Few and all that kind of stuff, they relied too heavily on procedurally generated.
It's not something I like at all for myself. I don't play roguelikes. I don't play anything like that. I want a game that's been designed to be a flow.
You want a thumbprint on it, basically.
Yeah.
Of course,
Humans made this, and humans made this directly. They didn't parameterize something.
Even an open world game can be too loose for me because I really like level design in my games, and not every game has level design. So.
That is very true. Because sandbox games are so prevalent now, especially first person and third person.
Sometimes they're good, but sometimes they feel kind of loose and dull for that reason.
Essentially, one of the things that I've been noticing with like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is that there is a vast degree of open worldness, but then when you get to certain areas, there's a huge amount of level design within that, and it makes it feel quite unique in that respect. Yeah,
it is possible to do both. Like, that's awesome. Yeah.
One of the things, though, I will say that I really enjoyed about sort of cracking open the Crow Country project and getting to work on it, that I think came about just from ease of development on Adam's end, is that a lot of the smaller set dressing elements in Crow Country have some degree of randomization to their placement, their angle, their sometimes even texturing, their color. And so in the same way that you can re-roll a guest, whenever you leave a room, whenever you come back in, everything's subtly shifted. And you might never notice it. But I think subliminally, it goes a long way to making this feel like an active, breathing, lived in. Some other people are in this environment with me, even if it's just the wind blowing around or the crows pecking at things. I think you would notice if it was gone, but I don't. I'd imagine not many people notice. Oh, this cigarette was at a 45-degree angle.
Yes, I was going to give this cigarette as an example. So the game is absolutely covered in trash. There's stuff all over the floor. Yeah. And in order to not kill myself doing it manually, that kind of stuff is randomized. So I place each one in a position, but then let's say the cigarette, it starts off and it's just straight, but it'll randomly rotate, it'll randomly bend in 3 different segments, and then the colors will randomly swap. And then when they all do that, the effect you get is it looks natural. And I didn't have to do too much work to make it look natural. I just said, okay, here are your parameters, and then you all roll randomly and you walk into them and it just feels correct. So that's one of the things that we did.
The level geometry itself is all handmade by Adam.
Yeah, of course.
Sort of any of the larger objects is all. I think the largest object that gets randomized is like the covering on a seat on a chair.
Yeah,
is about the largest thing that is re-rolled. So
it's a nice tip to make your game feel like organic, is to just put everything just slightly off center.
Yeah,
that's I do like that. I do. Although I did have fun finding a med kit in the trash. That one cracked me up. I actually did.
Would you use a med kit that had been in the trash, or would you just leave it in the trash?
Well, depends on what's in the med kit, right?
You see, a week before the park closed down, they had a special event where everyone got given a med kit on the way in, and everyone was like, "What is this nonsense?" and threw it in the bin.
There is kind of a story reason why there's so many med kits going around, but
there is.
It's no weirder than all the med kits in the ancient pyramids that Lara Croft finds, That
oh my gosh, right?
Or the handgun bullets that come out of vending machines sometimes.
There you go.
I mean, that one's a bit dangerous,
That is funny, though.
So,
video games.
So when was it decided, in development, that you were going to add different difficulty levels, including the Explorer mode? Or... or whatever.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. Yes.
Yeah, that was an idea that we had quite early on. I just seen this tweet from somebody, and I can't find it now, but it was someone saying, maybe jokingly, maybe seriously, they said, "Is there a mod for Silent Hill where you can just remove the enemies? Because I just love being there, but I don't want to shoot anything." And it really stuck with me as a cool thing to think, like, yeah, I just want to live in this game. I just want to like exist in this game world without having the stress of I might be killed, I have to kill. So I just presented it to Tom as like, what if we just did this instead of an easy mode? And
And luckily, the game was already fully formed at that point. You know, it was sort of in final tweaking stages, but it just luckily worked really well, just straight up deleting the enemies in that mode. I mean, almost no other changes, really. Just that there were enough puzzles, all the story elements are still there.
Yeah.
Adam leaves a couple of pre-killed enemies scattered around just to give the idea that, oh, maybe someone has already come and cleared them all out.
Yeah, otherwise you don't know what they look
So
like.
Right. They
Yeah.
sort of everyone else is the other characters in the game are talking about these horrific things, and you're like, what are you talking about? So, but yeah, it worked first time without really any tweaking, and that was lucky. But really good.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I have to say, when I loaded up the game and seeing that option there, that's a big deal to me because I do really love exploring worlds. That's kind of my whole deal.
Yeah.
And the idea that I could go and explore it. I mean, because also think about this, like if someone is not maybe so great at
Yeah, absolutely.
play, they'd miss out on all this beautiful, aesthetic world that you've created, and now they can go look at it. And
Yeah, my partner's mum just finished the game. It took her months, and she basically doesn't play video games at all. But she got through Crow Country because she played on exploration mode.
Yeah.
So she's now able to talk to me about the story, which is incredible because she never would have gone anywhere near it.
All right.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you, I played it the first time in normal mode, and I didn't gel with the combat too much specifically,
Sure.
but I really was enjoying the story elements of it and the exploration. So I went into Explorer mode and basically it was just like, I really like the world. I just want to play it sort of like that.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very enjoyable experience even without the combat.
Yeah, it's designed as a puzzle game, really. So as long as you're doing that, you're having fun. And then some people found the game too easy when we launched it. So 2 weeks after launch, we added a hard mode.
Oh, right.
Because there's a lot of people that were, comfortable with survival horror, and for them it was a bit too easy. And hard mode has been very popular, and people really like it, and I feel like it's now balanced quite well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason it was too easy is because I made the game with tank controls, and then later on I added modern controls.
Yeah.
And modern controls, you can whiz around enemies way easier. And I never really adjusted the enemy speed to balance that. And later on I did. I have fixed that now. But I think that's why it was too easy at launch.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Yeah, I definitely find, because we've talked about, I think Pete and I talked about this as well, the combat is very, well, it's tank controls. It's very kind of...
Well, you don't have to use tank controls. You can use modern or tank, so you can use either one.
Changed that to modern.
So if you're using a controller, a controller, the D-pad is tank and the analog stick is modern. So you have both at the same time.
Oh, wow, okay. See, I didn't even realize that. There you go.
There you go.
I may have noticed that late on, actually, because I noticed you've got some modern sensibilities with the D-pad as well, like the quick 180 turn.
Yeah, you got to have. If you're doing tank, you have to do a 180 turn because it's just what you do in these games. But I don't play with tank anymore. I use modern controls because it's just quicker.
I was playing actually Resident Evil 2 remake, I think it was, Pete. I can't remember.
I think you were playing that recently, weren't you?
Yeah. No, it was the original, the HD version of the original Resident Evil. And it was tank controls, and I had forgotten how much I really, really hate tank controls.
Aww.
I know, it's terrible. It's like...
I like them, but I'm aware that you can't necessarily, get away with it these days.
Yeah, it's such a kind of throwback to a time when they were necessary.
It's It's funny what we got used to back in the 90s when we had nothing else, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, I was thinking of this the other day. Like, games used to be so difficult that you would never see the end. Like, all of that hard work put in, and nobody ever made it to the end of, like,
It makes you spend more money at Blockbuster renting them every weekend, you know. Or put more coins in the arcade machine or whatever it is.
Yes.
Which is even worse when you don't have a memory card.
You got to buy that memory card.
Absolutely.
Which I played Final Fantasy VII not knowing what a memory card even was.
There's an advert for it in the box because they know you need it.
Yeah, right over my head.
It's like, please buy this. You are going to need it. This game is 75 hours long.
Yeah, apparently.
PlayStation cannot handle being on that long. Please.
Yeah,
Apparently.
please buy one.
I got like to the first boss and I was like, what's this? Why? What? I don't understand.
One time I was playing Final Fantasy VIII and we were playing it for ages and we realized that the memory card we had in the slot was full or something. And so we couldn't save the game, and you can't go into the memory card menu mid-game. So we cycled down, we left the game on and cycled down into town and went to a CEX and found a memory card, cycled back and put it in, swapped it out, saved the day. But it was a fun moment. That doesn't happen very often these days.
Right, that's just gone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of those old pre-rendered background games. The tank controls did serve a purpose where if you're pressing up, then you know when you switch camera perspective, your character's still going to be going forwards.
Absolutely.
It's true.
See, I couldn't do it.
then
Easier
Devil
than
May Cry solved that, right? They solved it by they had camera shots that switched, you know, in an instant. But then the rule was if you were holding down sort of up and right on the analog stick,
right?
Even if the camera then had shifted so that you're coming in from a different angle, as long as you hold roughly within the same arc, it will carry on going in the direction you thought you were traveling. And then if you let go of the analog stick, it then resets the camera relativity again. So it was like a halfway mark.
Yeah,
it worked. It
worked.
It was
I don't know which game it is, but there is a PS2 game which doesn't have that fix. And if you hold the analog stick in a direction and go between a screen transition, your character will just infinitely jiggle between the two screens because it keeps changing direction. So yeah, you know. These days we don't really have camera changing at all. It's just, you know, we live in a post-Resi 4 world. Everything's just over the shoulder permanent.
Fixed camera.
Yeah.
Give me that over-the-shoulder fixed camera. Yes.
Yeah, it does what it does.
But it's funny because I actually did absolutely forget until I was playing the Resident Evil HD. I think was the remake, but it was still tank controls, obviously. And then, you know, pushing over, you know, on the D-pad, pushing left or whatever. No, right. That's his hand.
You can change the Resident Evil 1 remake. The HD remaster has modern controls in there. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. And I just, for some reason, just really was a glutton for punishment. I was like, hey, we're going to do this the way it originally was presented.
Yeah, it's designed around it, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, the GameCube version, let's call it, it was kind of designed to have both, so.
Oh, my goodness.
To some degree.
Yeah, that was such a wild time. Being a gamer, because it was that weird middle point of 3D and 2D platformers, you know, it was so strange.
That's why I like the PS1, because it's like a no man's land of experimentation. And this day, it's got the most interesting stuff on it. Like, the example I always land on is Parappa the Rapper. Not even the rhythm game aspect of it, just the visual style. That is a style that would not exist if it weren't for the limitations at the time. Yeah. So, you know, it's cool, and we should do more weird stuff now, even though we don't have to. That's also something I believe.
I would love weird stuff, but no, Parappa the Rapper is actually a very good example for the young ones out there of taking what you could do with a PS1 and then trying to push as far as you could, because it still had this kind of like 3D effect, even though it was obviously, you know, not.
Yeah.
And then, you know, because it had the heavy outlines, much like games that would come up with, you know, later. I can't even think right now.
Metal Gear Solid being probably one of them. Well, where it just pushed the boundaries.
Yeah, that one was. Yeah, he's always been pushing the tech of whatever console. Like
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 2 was a crazy PS2 game. It did all kinds of crazy new
know
shit
it
as
did.
well. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love games.
So going back to Crow Country, just of course, because we've diverted
Yeah, because
here.
we went, woo!
And I probably only have one more question about it. If you could change anything about the game, would you? And if so, what would it be?
I would have changed the difficulty balance at launch, but we have now fixed it.
Of course,
so that's something we've done. There's a line of dialogue I wish I'd put in the game and I didn't. You can find some running shoes in the game, and the story of those running shoes is that they should have belonged to a character that you then meet. And I wish she commented on it if you're wearing them, because she could have said, I always wanted shoes like that, but I never got them. Some people will know what this is, but it's a one line. Basically, when you make a game and you have to get it localized, there comes a day when you just need to stop writing dialogue. So
Sure.
I just stopped. And kind of wish that was in there because it'd be a really sweet moment. I wish we'd organized I wish we sort of the bonus unlocks and custom unlocks were a bit more unified and organized, because it's kind of a mess. But that was all cobbled on after the fact. So
Okay.
Right now I'm in the process of prototyping our next horror game, and I've got a laundry list of things that Crow Country didn't do that well or didn't do at all, and I'm just putting them all in the next one. So that's how I'm solving this problem, really. But Tom, do you have
anything Crow Country does do well, we're not going to do it next time.
No, that's not true. No, it's not quite.
So, well-written story out the window.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I'm tucking that out. No, it's going to be a mixture of like copying Crow Country and deliberately not copying Crow Country. So it's
Fair
going to be
enough.
interesting.
And what has been the reception been? What's the reception been like since Crow Country's come out?
Tom, you want to talk on this one?
I mean, it's our biggest self-published launch ever. You're never going to beat Snipperclips with Nintendo's marketing power. I don't think we will ever have a game that sold that many copies. But for Adam and me and a few friends helping us out near the end, this was spectacular in a way that has never happened to us before. I think Adam's first tweets with just still images of the game brought on like nothing we've ever put out there. And then when we announced the game, and we announced it and released a demo at the same time just before Halloween last year, 23rd of October, the reception was, again, just blew us away with how many people, A, took notice, and B, loved it, absolutely loved it, and were just hungry for the real thing. And yeah, we've very rarely announced a game before it comes out. Or, like a long time before, and this ended up being about 6 months before we launched. We announced it, and that has never happened before. And luckily, it was the one time where everyone sort of grabbed onto it and went, "I want this, I want this." So, and it's borne out. I think people have been. I think we have an exceptionally high Steam rating of 98% positive at this point, and I think
That's
that
incredible.
is because you only upvote or downvote on a Steam review.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that people think it's 98% good. It's that 98% of people went yes.
Yes.
Which I think just means that 98% of people got the game and it was exactly what they thought they were going to get.
Yeah.
And they wanted it.
Well, they hoped
They
it
were
was
sold
gonna be.
a bill of goods, and they got that bill of goods.
Yeah.
Good time.
Oh yeah.
And then great. So I think it's been fantastic. And
For me,
it's,
the most tangible part of this is all the fan art and the cosplay and all the YouTube video essays and the Twitch stream, and that's the stuff where I look back and go, "Oh, okay, wow, this is amazing. This has happened." We've just released fan gamer merchandise. There's a T-shirt. There's a keychain.
Oh, amazing.
The plush is coming. We're doing physical versions, so it's like, yeah, it's It's amazing. It's been really great. So thank you so much to everyone who's played the game or made a YouTube video about the game or anything. It's been so great. So thank you very much.
I know.
Everybody.
So I know the reviewer for Rapid Reviews UK, like they were absolutely singing its praises. Gave it a 4.5 out of 5, where they said overall Crow Country as a title I can easily recommend. Interesting puzzles and captivating world building kept me hooked throughout my playthrough.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've read that because I read every single one. So.
Yeah, it was an incredible review, and it got me very interested to actually play the game. And then obviously this came up to talk to you guys, and I was massively interested because PS1 games were my forte. Like I grew up playing those games, so this is very much a throwback game, and I really enjoyed my playthrough of it actually. So
I was gonna say,
yeah,
our again, I'm gonna mention it again. Our WASD special. We had the Retro Gamer guys on as our guests, and they it was just absolutely singing the praises of Crow Country.
Yeah.
Because they got to play it. We didn't get to play it at that time, but we played it later. But they just absolutely I think it was. I only know him as Triangle Face.
So
yes.
So yeah, it's the Retro Gaming Revival YouTube channel, I think it is.
Yeah, and they just absolutely 100% were like, this is my top game of WASD. This is, everybody go get this, go wishlist it.
That was the thing, is we had so many games to play that weekend, and I just never got around to come in and giving it a try, and I'm so disappointed that I didn't.
I mean,
but we did try it after, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's only been high praise since day one.
Great, good to hear.
So, yeah,
Thanks so much.
absolutely. Absolutely. Pylord says Manic Miner, you couldn't get past level 15.
Yeah,
what
I know that.
a time that was. Yeah, I was gonna say. But so this is kind of your chance to say, I know we kind of touched on it lightly, but what is to come for SFB Games? What is the future hold for you wonderful people?
Cool.
Well, so we're prototyping another survival horror game because now we know how to do it.
Right.
Crow Country was a first time thing, so we do maybe. So that's going to happen at some point, but we're just taking our time exploring new ideas for that.
Yes.
It's not going to be Crow Country 2. It's going to be something different because I have no interest in continuing the story of Crow Country. I think it's done. So it'll be something else. And then officially we're working on a game called The Mermaid Mask, which is a detective grimoire game. It's a murder mystery puzzle detective adventure game, which is a follow-up to Tangle Tower, which came out a few years ago. And if you don't know what they are, they're kind of like Professor Layton meets Phoenix Wright.
Ooh,
and with a bit of Monkey Island humor and puzzle solving. So if you like that kind of thing, if you like narrative, puzzle, murder mystery, talking to wacky suspects and finding weird clues and stuff, we've made a couple of these already and they're very popular-ish. So
hang on,
we're making a new one.
This yet?
The Mermaid Mask is set in a really weird, spooky submarine. So it's a kind of underwater themed mystery. And I'm very busy with that right now. It's a big project. And yes, it did get slowed down by Crow Country because there's only 2 of us. And, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So that's officially what we're doing. Tom is still making, patches for Crow Country and working on this because it's a never-ending.
Be released.
Yeah, Tom's been doing amazing work supporting the game on all the platforms and doing patches and setting up trophies and all kinds of stuff. And it really is interesting to know how long it takes to, when you release a game, you've got to keep working on it for a while. You can't just be like, okay, let's forget about it now. But yeah, so that's it. We haven't got anything else that we're working on, just those 2, I guess.
So is there any plans to announce when those could potentially be coming, or is it just it's done?
So the Mermaid Mask hopefully will just be sometime next year. It currently just says coming soon, and it's November, and we haven't announced a release date. So I hope everyone will just assume it's not coming this year and it's going to come next year. I really hope we'll get a trailer out for that soon enough so we can show it off and put a release date on it maybe at some point. The next survival horror game is a way off, probably year after that or something. I don't know. No idea. It's not concrete yet. But I'm having fun prototyping it. So, but I'm holding back. I don't want to show anything until,
Of course.
it's because I don't want to. Once you show off your work as well, it becomes less exciting. It's like if you tell someone an idea, suddenly you don't care anymore because you had the feeling of sharing it anyway. So we're keeping quiet on.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Keep it as quiet as possible so you can let it brew.
There's this whole psychological thing about that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you announce what you're going to do, for some reason, it like gives you that kind of feels that you've already accomplished it.
Yeah, and then you're like, don't need to do anything else. So
I think I've got one final question going forward outside of the survival horror genre. If there was one genre of game that you could pick to do next, what would it be?
Tactical RPG. Sorry. Adam's had his perfect game where he went off and made the game in the genre he loves most. Mine is turn-based tactical RPG, a la Final Fantasy Tactics, or
Into the
Advance
Breach,
Wars.
you really like?
Into the Breach. I love that game. I feel like, tactical RPG sports game, like
maybe,
sport is
I would
something
love to
brewing
work
in
on
my
it,
head for some time in the future.
I mean,
there's also a genre that we would love to make, that we both would love to make, and that's
We are
rhythm.
both.
So we're massive Parappa fans, and we're massive fans of Jamalami, which is the sort of successor to Parappa that people don't talk about it as much.
That's right.
And to this day, I feel like nobody has done anything close to what Jamalami is doing in terms of the rhythm genre. So I want to tap into that one day and discover, new things to do in that genre.
Rhythm games just went down this. I think the original one's called OSU exclamation mark, and it's all the ones where you're sort of like on a touchscreen or on the. So it's like Elite Beat Agents was one of the big ones that was using that form.
Yeah,
where you're doing sort of swipe, click, swipe, click.
Yeah, that
click,
plus Guitar Hero just like plateaued the whole genre for like 15 years, and nobody did anything interesting with it.
Else.
Whereas Parappa and Jamalami are so like you're being asked to be creative and passionate and Guitar Man. Anyway,
Punch, kick, it's all in the mind.
exactly.
You were just waiting for that forever, weren't you?
I was. I loved Parappa. I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, it is very true. I would love to see innovations on the rhythm game type thing. Although I have to say that one where
there are some good indie rhythm games, but
there are.
Oh, yeah.
Like the I cannot remember the name of it, and I feel terrible for that. But it's like it came out not too long ago. It is actually a horror game, I think. But wow, I've just blanked out because I drank an entire bottle of Prosecco.
Of course you did.
But it's very, very recent. But anyway. But it has been such an amazing
Is it called Don't Fret?
What?
No,
Say that again?
It's called Don't Fret.
No, it's like a rock and roll kind of game where you kill monsters, but with guitar rhythms. I've just blanked out because I had too much Prosecco. But it's an indie game. But anyway. But I want to thank our wonderful guests, Adam and Tom from SFB Games, because this has been so cool. I've enjoyed every minute of this. And everything.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us. It was a pleasure.
It was so much fun. I do want to encourage our wonderful, beautiful chat to go follow these two. Follow SFB Games. Go wish list Crow Country and all of the mini games on Steam. But I do want to say, yes. So, Tom, can they find you out there in Never Never Land? Out there on the internet. Is there a place where they can access you?
Sure. So we're still hanging on to Twitter X at the moment under at SFB Tom and at SFB Dim, DIM is Adam for reasons. But we are more and more, I find myself on Blue Sky, which is a lovely place so far. And we're the same users on that. So SFB Tom, SFB Dim. Just generally the hub to find all of our things is sfbgames.com. That has links to everything, so you can't really go wrong if you find us there.
Excellent. excellent. Yeah, Pete's really been kind of exploring Blue Sky. I'm on there, but I never click it. I went off X, and I was just like, done. It's
Probably
crazy.
healthier for it.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because I had I just got the, oh, it's your anniversary or whatever, and I'd been on Twitter 15 years. That is
I know.
insane.
Every time those come through, it makes me want to just delete the whole app.
Right?
It's
I'm
not
just
doing what they
like-
think it's doing.
No, it's not at all. Yeah. But Adam, is there anything you want to add to where they can find you?
No,
guys?
we're both just on Twitter and Blue
Okay.
Sky, and that's it. Yeah, and SFBGames.com and Steam and.
Oh,
that's
and go
it.
to Fangamer and buy some cool. Go
Go to Fangamer, go to Bandcamp or anywhere else and get the Okroyd Crow Country soundtrack, which is amazing.
Oh, it is. We didn't
There's two
even
of them
talk
now,
about the
two
music.
soundtracks.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't talk about music. But,
It's very good.
any,
Yeah, I
any,
know.
any plans for a vinyl release, possibly?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
No.
I would almost think that a cassette release would be more appropriate.
Oh, cassette release could work, yeah.
Yeah, but who
Everyone's
has?
cassette players.
I was gonna say who has cassette players anymore.
Yeah, vinyl
I have a vinyl player. But
They're making a comeback, all right, cassette players.
Uh huh.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do love my record player. I'm not gonna lie. It's from the 50s, and I love it. This because I love Fallout, and so I bought this because it looked like it was from Fallout.
Well, of course.
And then yeah, it was amazing. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Pete, this is your chance. Where can they find you outside of Rapid Reviews Radio?
Twitter and Blue Sky, Rapid Reviews Radio on there, or our Radio Pod on Twitter. I also do another podcast called The Never Watchers. We do film, TV. So we're going to be coming back this week. I think we're doing Agatha all along.
All right.
So yeah, that's been a much delayed episode, but we're going to get back to that very soon. So that's all Marvel Cinematic Universe or films that either me or my co-host have never seen before. So that's usually on most good podcast players. So check out The Never Watchers. Kylie, let's talk to your
Yes.
streams. Where can they find you?
I mean, come on. You can find me over at twitch.tv/KILEY_WILDE, where I stream Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. Sometimes I do in between. Sometimes I do a Saturday stream called Off My Chest, which was witty and fun. That allows chat to kind of talk about their week and ask me questions and get kind of personal and stuff like that. But if you don't like all of that kind of parasocial interaction, which is fine, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do stream first-person shooters on Monday, weird games on Wednesday, and frightening Fridays, obviously, horror games on Friday. But we have a great community over there. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is encouraged to just be themselves. We only have one rule, which is don't hurt anybody. But outside of that, come as you are. And you can talk about anything you want to talk about. And we just embrace the weird, embrace the fun, and stuff like that. And next week, I believe, like I said, we're going to be playing Resident Evil 7, mouthwashing, and something else on Friday. I don't know yet.
Nice.
But come be a part of it. If you feel like you're kind of like an outcast or you don't really belong anywhere, you will belong in our little community. You have a place there, and everything. And I think that's it because I'm not on Twitter anymore. I said bye.
Fair enough.
But you can find me on Twitter. Freaking heck. You can find me on TikTok. YouTube, which is just taking off, and I'm just like, I don't know what happened. It went crazy. So if you're a YouTuber and you really enjoy YouTube, go find me, Kiley Wilde, over there. Holy crap. And I think that's it. And then otherwise, Rapid Reviews, radio, podcast, every Sunday here between 7 and 7:30 we kind of start. And everything. I think that's it. I feel like
so.
I'm forgetting something though. But
I think that might be it. But all the links to everyone, including everything SFB, will all be in the show notes
Yes.
once it goes live. Well, after the Twitch has finished, and on the podcast and YouTube and all that. So we'll make sure that we link to all the socials, all the website, and the wishlist page on Steam, stuff like that.
Yes, definitely do that. But I think that's going to wrap it up for the podcast portion. please stick around because we'll do 2 or 3 minutes of a post show.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is, I'm not reading that out loud, Pylord.
Good God.
Okay, see, the funny thing is, he says that.
Oh,
I just
Kylie,
found
no,
out.
move on. Let's save it for the post show.
I'm just saying, there's an adult actress with my same name, and it's caused some confusion. No, that is not me. Anyway, but exactly, Pylord. We thank you so much for joining us in this wonderful edition of this podcast. Please go wishlist Crow Country. You will not regret it. Go play the demo. You'll love it. Anyway, thank you so much. We will see you and talk to you next week. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rapid Reviews Radio podcast. You can find the podcast on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and various other podcast platforms. You can also find the video version by searching Rapid Reviews on YouTube and watch the podcast recording live on Twitch at twitch.tv/rapidreviews at 7:30pm UK time every Sunday. Please make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at RRRadioPod, and for all the latest reviews, visit www.rapidreviewsuk.com or on Twitter at RapidReviewsUK.